everybody, and welcome to the Quest for the Best Director podcast. My name is Matthew Moore. My stomach hurts right now. I am a Jew, forever persecuted, etc. But joining me, someone who's, whether he's alive or not, is a question to be debated on this very podcast. Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It sounds like I'm doing better than you. You sound quite subdued.
Yeah, my stomach hurts. I feel really bad. And just it's been a long day. Long day at work. Really busy. I had to tutor people. Gosh,
That's
expect me
rough.
to do my job. I know. I
Speaking
know.
of work, I got a job today.
Oh, it's exciting. Where?
Yeah, it's at the gym.
Ooh.
Yep.
Ooh. We'll talk about that after the podcast. But
All
also
right.
joining us, Caleb. I am a bit afraid for you. Okay. Because I kind of there's this hypothetical situation where you get super strong. Um, and maybe you think you can really bench 300 pounds, and it all falls on you and you die. And Derek, who's for whatever reason at the gym, takes up your identity, and you are now he is now Caleb Ferguson, and you are now Derek Krasinski. Wouldn't that be terrible?
No,
No.
dude, I'd love to be Derek.
You would love to be our third co-host, Derek Schwarzinski. Derek, how you
Derek
doing?
Schwarzinski.
Been better. I fucked up my thumb, so now I can't play games too well.
Real downer pod
I have
today.
no
How'd you
idea.
fuck up your thumb? What game?
My right
Which
thumb,
thumb?
so my mouse hand.
Ah, yeah, that's rough. Because if it was your left thumb, you could still play League.
Yeah, I still can play League, but I found it just because I use WASD for camera movement, so it still works. It is really fucking hard.
That's your rocket.
I was playing Urgot earlier, and I was actually doing pretty well, but I think that more has to do with
there you go.
Urgot than anything.
Yeah, you probably do better with a broken thumb as Urgot, so.
Shut up, nerds.
Caleb, let's play Dota. It's a real nerd game.
So, speaking of assuming identities, don't you guys think it's hilarious that we have another one of these random movie coincidences where the plot of our movie this week is very similar to the plot of a movie last week? Namely, North by Northwest has a very similar plot to The Passenger.
Yeah. One's a much more intentional assumed identity.
Yeah. But still, they both they
it is
take
kinda
someone else's
funny.
identity and they both end up being like a spy, basically.
See, Caleb, Caleb, that was. Derek, how would you rate Caleb's kind of a segue coincidence
I'll
thing?
give it a 7 out of 10.
It was all right, but the issue is it's a bit choppy. He talked about the movie last week, which wasn't as good, and I feel like I didn't really have. I'm going to show you how it's done, okay, Caleb?
All right, let's see.
Okay, so the other day I was looking at the upcoming matchups we have, and one that's I think we mentioned a couple times in the pod. It's still sticking out to me is this Winnell versus Renoir, the River versus Unshin and Lao, because Unshin and Lao is a very short movie, and I was very worried. I was kind of happy that I didn't have to do that long of a podcast that week, but also how are we gonna talk about it? Now I'm taking stats, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with variance, right? Basically, it's stats. What comes above the expected value must come down. And this week, we had a couple movies making up for Unshin and Lao in the what comes up department. Because these were some long movies. It's like 5 hours total runtime for these two movies. Kind of insane.
And Solaris was
Insane.
over half of it.
They're pretty long. But I don't mind, though, because they're both really good.
They are.
So,
But it's interesting because they're also a bit of a similar. It wasn't like they were really okay. There's been some movies that are long, like Solaris and The Passenger, between Avengers Endgame, right? Which is 3 hours, but it's something's happening at all times. It's 3 hours, so they have to cram as much stuff in there as possible. So now you feel more empty inside. These movies are very similarly paced, I would say.
Yeah, I actually barely agree with that. Yeah, but It's interesting that you say that they were so long because they
Oh,
didn't feel that
Solaris
long to
definitely
me.
felt
Like,
long. Though it was
obviously,
very intentionally, yeah.
Or I thought the
Like
passenger felt long.
the
I thought the
Solaris,
passenger
it
felt
very
longer.
intentionally was.
Yeah, I did
I
too.
felt longer because that was like the whole point. Like most of the shots were very long, intentionally. That's like what he was trying to do. He's trying to create a very slow pace.
How do
Well,
you
I
know what he
did
was
some
trying to do?
research, and apparently that's what he wanted to do because that's what the book does. He said it in an interview that the original.
Oh, you speak
Yeah, I
Russian
speak
now?
Russian.
No, you're messing with you. Messing with you. Okay. Well, we're already started talking about Solaris, so let's get our thoughts on it. For those who don't know, Solaris is about the things, guys. I should really like. I haven't done watched
Do
the
you want me
movie
to
in
do
like a
it? I
week.
pretty much remember the movie.
Go for it. I know what it's about. I just don't remember the names. Is my issue.
Okay, well, there's this main scientist guy named Kelvin, and basically
Chris,
on
right?
this
Chris
research,
Kelvin. Yeah.
yeah, I just remember his name's Kelvin, and there's a research station
Chris.
above the planet Solaris, which is basically a giant ocean, and the scientists on there are like starting to go crazy, and they haven't really got any useful findings after like several decades of basically the people on planet Earth or humans or Russia or whatever country it is have been studying Solaris. And so they're gonna have this Kelvin guy go up there and see what's going on with all these guys that are clearly like losing their minds, and also like sort of. I'm not sure on this, but I'm pretty sure he's like making the decision like whether or not to continue studying Solaris or if they're gonna kind of like call it off. And then he gets there, and then all sorts of weird shenanigans start happening. There's like all these apparitions that are appearing, but they still have physical form. They just like kind of like randomly appear. And then one is his wife basically, and then he kills his wife the first time, and then his wife shows up again, and this time he kind of falls in love with her, and then there's kind of just like a whole bunch of like talking about stuff and what's going on, and then at the very end, uh, he decides to stay on Solaris because it's like better than
That's
Earth basically.
Does he decide to stay on Solaris or
Yeah.
not? Because I thought it
Well,
was kind of was that
No, he definitely
what it
does.
was?
he
Because it was
does.
like it was like he was in the same like area as before, like as Earth, like the same house, and then all of a sudden it was revealed to be actually on Solaris.
Yeah, because Solaris is all of his memories,
Yeah,
right? I
and
think the
also
idea
there's
is
a
like they transported his brain waves or whatever to the planet.
yeah, oh yeah, that was another thing is they sort of like transfer Kelvin's brainwaves to the planet in like an attempt to basically like if they do that, then the planet will realize that these like apparitions are disturbing to them and it'll stop sending them. And oh yeah, but there's a lot of clues that like it's actually he's on Solaris. So the first big one
Yeah.
is that it's raining indoors, which is kind of like this thing where like Solaris is like mimicking his memories, but like not quite doing it perfectly. And then the other thing is that, well, besides it zooming out and showing that it's inside of a giant Solaris ocean, it's also winter. So this is like basically a really intentional contrast with the original scenes of like his home area, like in the surrounding nature, which are super green and lush. And then like you see like in the lake, and there's all these like flowing like river like plants or whatever. And then this second time, when he's on the Solaris version, the lake is frozen over and all the trees are dead. So it's supposed to be kind of like
Yeah,
it's not mimicking it right, and it's sort of like barren of like the richness of what makes life life.
but so one thing I was confused about is do we assume that his wife's on the planet with him?
I don't see why not. She definitely could
Yeah,
be. Solaris could give it to him.
because like it kind of seems like it's at least his move there is somewhat motivated by her,
But
right?
then
Like she
also,
leaves and
is
then
he literally on Solaris
um
or like in his head or whatever brainwaves he sends to Solaris on Solaris?
No, he's
I
literally
think
on
he's
Solaris
literally
because
on
remember at the
Solaris.
very end, like they're debating whether or not they should like leave or something, and there's they mention how there's like all these islands rising up in the middle of the ocean,
Also,
and
they
he's on
cut
one
out.
of those
Yeah, yeah,
islands.
yeah.
But speaking of that scene, that's really cool at the end when he goes down and drops down to his knees and hugs his dad, because
Mhm.
apparently that's a reference to some Rembrandt painting, which I did a little bit of research on, called The Prodigal Son Returns, which is that's itself a reference to the parable in the Bible about, I guess you guys probably know, but for any viewers who don't, basically the younger son, like of this really rich guy, decides to just go out and take his inheritance or like his whatever money his dad gave him and like basically just spend it on like hookers and booze and just basically becomes a degen for like several years. And
You
then he
call it
finally,
Derek.
yeah, exactly. And then he comes back after several years and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm really sorry. Like, I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. I was young and dumb." And then his dad just like forgives him. So the fact that like they're mimicking this here is like really powerful because it's showing how like Solaris is like this redemptive, loving, caring force that like really cares for Kelvin in a way and is like basically forgiving him for all of his sins as a mortal in a way. So really powerful. And it kind of follows also this theme of like um paintings in the movie. Like there's all these really long shots of like oh, what's it called? It's like the Hunters in the Snow or something like that. Um Another famous painting from kind of a similar period as Rembrandt, I think. I'm not sure, but um, anyhow, so there's all this like painting stuff, which is basically intended to like elevate, or like Tarkovsky sort of intended to like show how film can be like elevated as a medium.
Especially quite literally in the levitation scene, right?
Oh, dude, I totally forgot about that. That was such a crazy scene.
And it's interspersed with the painting too. I think literally.
Yeah.
And it's literally elevating it. So.
Oh my god! Holy shit! This movie's so good.
Tarkovsky like gives you no lack of things to talk about.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like I took on this movie probably more than twice as many notes as I've taken on any movie that we've done on this podcast so far.
Crazy.
Like I'm a ham on this movie. I'm so excited to talk more about it. You guys have to stop me. I'll probably go for 3 hours. I love this movie.
Go for 3 hours. Me and Derek have a hurt thumb and I have a hurt stomach, so and I'm chafing.
Wait, you're shaving like right now?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm like rubbing my legs together just to kind of make the pain a bit worse.
Dang. Wait, you're shaving your legs?
Chafing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think you said you were shaving.
Shaving.
That's a little different.
That would be a whole other kind of podcast.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, do you guys have any takes on what I just said, or should I move on to my next big topic?
I mean, yeah, I think what you said is like pretty much standard. It just what's beautiful is how when Tarkovsky like switches between these paintings, it doesn't even feel unnatural, you know?
Yeah.
Because of the world that we're in. And like how he uses coloration in this movie is so poignant.
Yeah.
To like really make these transitions to paint the paintings feel like, yeah, seamless.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting too that like our final scene, which is like kind of the one maybe like counterbalance to this idea of like Solaris as being like a loving being, you know, which is the fact that like it's barren and like covered in ice and the snow and all the trees are dead and stuff. Is that like all along throughout the movie we've been looking at this beautiful Hunters in the Snow painting, and it's like sort of like priming us for this like aesthetic experience of an icy landscape. You know what I mean? So it's like almost like by the time it comes, it's like you don't even mind because you've been looking at like beautiful ice for so long that like you're like ready to accept it as being beautiful.
Derek, what are your thoughts on all this? I have a feeling I know where this podcast is going.
Yeah.
I think the shot at the beginning was very, very good. It reminded me of two things about her when he's just focusing on like the reeds in the little pond. He spends like 5 minutes on that shot.
Okay, yeah.
It's so good. That's so beautiful.
It's like
just
really
watching
ambiguous in that whole first scene who's talking because we have like the adults and the children. It was kind of weird, hard to know where our focus exactly was supposed to be, which I thought was interesting. Why do you think that is? You know what I'm saying? Like in the first scene, he doesn't really focus in on anybody. Like until we kind of get the close-up of them talk, like, of when the three guys meet up and they all start talking. The friend. Until like they actually meet up, I have like no idea what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. Like these like shots interspersed with the kids. I'm like, are they important? Like, why do you think that is though? Like he like so like intentionally kind of, I guess I don't know how to say it. Like, he doesn't direct your gaze anywhere. I guess. Mr. Extra Gaze? Why do you think that is? Anybody?
Well, to me, it's like it's just sort of in line with like the pace of the film, right? So like it sort of kind of builds up a little bit more slowly, and I think like that's kind of the way he does that is by starting off just showing you like an aesthetic environment and like sort of slowly like having a gradation of story, if that makes sense. Like it would feel jarring, I think, for such a slow movie to just like start like in like the middle of a conversation or two people talking. Like it kind of has to like because the even like the climax and like the most exciting parts of the movie are still rather slow. The rest of the movie has to scale down to fit. You know what I mean?
Huh.
I
Yeah,
know
that makes
that's
sense.
or at least that's what its effect was. I can't say for sure that's what is intentional because there's probably like way more layers to it. But at least that's what its effect was on me is like sort of just like slowly introducing you to what's going on. Especially because like the story is not like all the details of the story in my mind like aren't extremely important. And like from what I've read about the book and like the differences between the book and the movie is that like the book is a lot more focused on like those types of things, like the story elements and like these questions about like what is man's place in the cosmos and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Whereas like the film is a lot more introverted and just focused on like a personal story or like personal growth. And like neither one is better than the other. I think they're both brilliant. But
And well, have you read the book?
no,
Maybe it's
oh
not
no, I
that
haven't.
brilliant.
Well, wait, you said the book isn't that good?
But maybe, who knows? I mean,
Oh well, no. What I mean is not that the book was brilliant, but that both concepts or like ideas or ways to
sure,
tell the
yeah.
story like can conceivably work and be good.
I do agree. So kind of transition on. So then next we basically have this. This is actually like I don't know, part of the movie I'm most iffy on, I guess, is when they go back and look at the videotapes
yeah.
of the old explorer, old pilot, and
Yeah.
it's so long.
It's so
They're there for
fucking long.
so long, and I understand. I understand what you mean, Caleb. But like, it's about the aesthetic, but like, there's a lot of narrative here. Like, it's not so much to look at, you know. But yeah.
I kind of like that little bit because we have like this cool like where he like goes between the layers a lot of like
Sure.
because like we're watching a movie and then Kelvin is watching a movie and then Burton in that movie is watching a movie. So like we kind of get the balance between these like layers, and I think it kind of works because it doesn't really happen anywhere else in this movie. So it kind of like feels a little bit like what's the word I'm looking for? Like not like a novelty, but like it's like a little something different. You know what I mean? Maybe novelty is the right word, but
Interesting
it's
that you
like
say Calvin because I don't. It's more like Burton's watching the movie. You know what I mean? I think it's most striking, right? Is he's watching himself watch a movie, right?
that's true too.
But even
Yeah,
in the movie, we have to assume that whoever he saw, right, is someone from his memories. You know,
yeah, and
so like he's looking at himself, self-reflect, which is like this the more meta moment of it.
yeah, exactly. And like I'm partial to like meta stuff for whatever reason, but I still think it's kind of cool because like it's not overdone, right? Like we have like a scene where we get to be really meta and movie within a movie, but then like we don't do it again, so it doesn't get old.
Okay, sure, sure. I mean, within the scene itself, I'm like, I feel like they could have cut like 2 minutes off, and
least.
we'd probably be
It was definitely too long.
yeah. A lot of no, he is crazy. And like, I'm not crazy. Just a lot of that. A lot of cuts to that. Who is the woman there on the couch with them, by the way? Is that mom?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't know.
In my head, I have a woman being there.
No, there is.
Maybe I'm just
There's like one or
making
two.
that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree that I think this like the first segment of the movie, like before he gets to Solaris, like
Yeah, I
does
agree.
drag on a little bit, but I think like it's interspersed with these like such good shots that it pays off, like right, like it builds up to where like you're kind of like dying for like stimulation a little bit, and then it's like bam, here's a gorgeous shot for you. How do you like that one? Like
Yeah, and I also think it's what we're dying for is to know Chris, right? Like to know our main character because I mean we have him talking to what's the guy's name? I keep forgetting, guys. I'm sorry. The
is it
old
Burton? Is that how you're
Burton,
thinking of?
yeah. Yeah, we have him talking to Burton. That's like a pretty telling scene, right? Where it's like, I say we just blow it all up.
Yeah, right.
You can't. Then we have his dad come to him after and basically he has like a really poignant line where he's like, he tells Chris that you have to be fragile in outer space, and like he's like not fragile enough. Which I think is like a super important line. Cause basically, it's like the very obvious like foreshadowy like this is like a movie about like kind of Chris understanding fragility and what that really means. And
That's interesting though, like because nothing in this movie is that fragile. Solaris isn't fragile. They bombard it with radiation, and all it does is start showing them their memories. Like, it's interesting that you would focus on that because I think like our modern ideas, like our modern like archetypes of or story tropes, would definitely have this story being, Solaris is this like vulnerable wonderland, and mankind and industrialism is going to destroy it and stuff like that. But that's like not at all what the story is about.
sure, but even then, it's something it has to at least be playing off that. Like I think if I agree that's not what it's about, but it definitely creates that assumption that it is what it's about. Like, and I think Tarkovsky knows that he's doing that, right?
That's
So
totally true, right?
Yeah, so it takes this other turn. That's why.
Yeah, it's like it gets you built up to be like, oh no, like because they like kind of talk about this a lot, like, oh no, like we're gonna bombard it with radiation, just destroy it and leave, and like so it kind of builds you up, like, oh no, we have to save it, and like by the time Kelvin gets there, he's like, oh yeah, we did it like months ago, and now we just like are seeing things.
Yeah.
It's like no matter like we think we're like so badass, but even like the most destructive thing we could possibly think of to do like doesn't phase this thing. Like it's just like that much beyond, or like at least other than us.
So what do you think Solaris is supposed to represent then?
Boy, I'm not sure. To tell you the truth, it's probably in my notes somewhere. So I'm just gonna have to work through it, and maybe when I get there, I'll let you know. But
I mean, the
off the
most
top of my
obvious one is
head,
like human memory, right? Like it represents something about humanity itself. You know.
uh, let's see. Yeah, I guess right. Like, or it's like not maybe it's some sort of like redemption though. Don't you
Yeah.
think? Like maybe like yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like ooh, like this is going to be my quote from later, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. But it's like we don't need other worlds. We need a mirror. Man needs man. So like what Solaris is like this great collective consciousness. So maybe like the idea is that like Solaris sort of represents some sort of like what do they call it in the Evangelion, like instrumentality of like all of mankind's minds like coming together in a way. Like
Now you're talking Derek's language.
yeah, I know that was for you, Derek. But to like I don't know, like other people basically, like in a way, like or like how human relationships could be. I don't know. That's I'm reaching out, I'm just kind of babbling, but I don't know, some ideas.
I think those are some ideas. Derek, give me ideas. What do you think Solaris represents in this film? Maybe we'll kind of discover it as we continue talking about it. But
I mean, what is it doing? Like dragging up kind of like the nightmares of their minds, right, or whatever their trauma is. And so maybe it's like overcoming that.
Yeah.
I suppose is how they, or deciding whether or not to overcome it or accept it. I suppose.
that's the weird part is.
It's kind of not even that though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like he's being faced with like his wife's trauma. He's like just giving what he wants. Like we can assume that all he wanted was like his wife back because she killed herself, and like Solaris is just like I'm gonna give it to you, and like he goes down to the planet and he gets like basically be at home. It's like just as good as it is at home. He gets to like see his dad again, right? Like it's just like and like the whole like similarity with like the prodigal son returns. It's like it's not trying to be punitive or like punish you for your trauma. It's just trying to like help you feel better. Like it's like I forgive you. Come back. I'll accept you.
Why do you think Solaris doesn't let the wife kill herself again, though?
She does kill herself.
And then she gets brought back like instantly.
And then she kills herself again using the annihilator beam or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm saying, why that second time? Like, can she not kill herself? Why do you think that is?
Because she realizes that she's not human.
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
And it's like so like weird, like yeah, that's like such a weird thing too. The way they have this wife be her character, not the wife, but like like the fictional wife, I guess, whatever you want to call it.
We're gonna call her the wife.
Character, yeah, because like she doesn't realize that she's fake. She thinks that she's real, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, she's like obviously behaving in ways that aren't real. You know?
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
You can levitate.
Yeah, like
She can be thrown out a window and not care.
yeah, right? Like it's so good. So one thing I want to talk about is like this movie, I don't know if you guys caught this, but it was almost like an anti-science fiction film, right? Like there was a lot of themes in here about like anti-science. Like in one of the beginning scenes, someone says, "I don't like innovation." I
Yeah.
probably wrote down a few quotes in here, but it's very like not fetishizing science like almost every other science fiction film that I've ever seen in my entire life. Because even in movies where we see the destructive potential of science, it's always the science has been created by a scientist and then misused by some Chad military guy. You know what I mean? Like
it's like actually appropriately like discrediting science instead of like, well, it could be used right, but really it never can because look what happens. It's like almost ignoring like science is something we should not be using. It doesn't really have a place in this film.
wait. So you're saying that like your take on this is that like we shouldn't use like science basically?
No, it's just a film. Like it's not like anti-science. It's like a science. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Kind of just devoid of it.
Here's another quote. He says, "Duty to whom? To science." Right? The next guy responds to science, and then he asks again, "Not to people." There's no truth there. I mean, I think "there" means science in this context, right? So it's like, yeah, like you said, like it's not, it's not even like normal science fiction films that would like be like, yeah, don't go for this forbidden knowledge or whatever. It's just like you can search for science all you want, but it's not going to be effective, and you're not going to achieve like fulfillment, right? Because man needs man. Man is looking for the stars, but we just need what's already here.
And I think I'm gonna help us out a bit here. Okay, I'm gonna tie some things together, hopefully.
Okay.
So, I think I'm gonna start with a non sequitur or sequitur by myself, but it's gonna tie it all back, I promise. So right now, I'm doing a video essay about films with only diegetic sound, right? So films with no score, no soundtrack, basically, that aren't within the film. And one of the films I'm talking about is the film we watched on the podcast, which I actually don't know if it doesn't have diegetic sound in it, but it's a good use, similar idea, so I threw it in there. Mouchette, right? And my thesis is that all these films that diegetic sound, all these minimalist films, are like not anti-political but apolitical, right? Usually minimalism is supposed to be anti-political, but when you kind of restrict yourself as like choosing only diegetic sound does, it becomes apolitical. In a similar way, I think this is a science, right? And
that's very true.
Where apolitical films, my whole thing with Mouchette is why it works. I talk about it in the podcast, not to trigger Caleb here, is that it focuses on a subject that is outside of politics, right? Like Mouchette can't exist within a political sphere because of just how she is treated, right?
True.
And in the same way, I think we can view Solaris as it can't be viewed within the scientific sphere because it's something outside of science. This planet Solaris, it is memory. It is like something intangible, right?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
That's why we can use it as a subject because it itself is just it doesn't exist within science. It's the only way to really be outside of science, which is itself kind of scientific. I guess like a statement on science, but yeah. And I think how he stylizes it is to kind of emphasize Solaris, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
To emphasize this looming planet, right? Because all these long scenes create this looming sense of this planet that is just right out there that we can't grasp. And then eventually, at the end, Chris does, right? He goes there.
Yeah, right. Like it's such a good allegory for things like memory and consciousness and spirituality, right? Because it obviously exists. It's right there, but we never get like that many concrete shots of it. We never get to see what it looks like from a wide angle. We're always like too close to it, to actually observe it effectively. Like we never get like a picture of the planet. I don't think we're always on these like really close up shots
until
of
the end. Yeah,
right.
until the end where we like back up. But yeah.
And that's such a great metaphor for like what consciousness is, or like what memory is, or spirituality, because like it obviously exists and we're forced to interact with it every day, but we can never like really view it effectively or interact with it. Like we never actually get to go touch it, just like Solaris until the end.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you brought up music and sound, because I think that that's one of the reasons why people like parse this movie as being like really slow, is because there's not really much music. Like there's so much silence in this movie for like the first like whole cluster of scenes.
Sure.
I
Not a
think
lot of
that's
music. There's a lot of sound though. There's a lot of like weird sounds they throw in there. But yeah.
even in the beginning.
Yeah, it's like like
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? Like these weird little like I don't know, like ad libs almost, but like not ad libs, but like little sounds that like throw in there that are kind of weird.
I
I
still
do
feel like it's very minimalist sound though. Like there might be
yeah,
like noises scattered through, but they're pretty sparse from what I remember.
yeah. Sure.
Which I liked, but I think that probably adds to the whole minimalist feel and what people might take as being like slow or boring. But because like if it was, if there was tons of like classical music blaring or something, we probably wouldn't parse it as being quite so slow. But then yeah, so like I kind of want to bring it back to like how we said before with like this kind of slowness and how it will kind of just like pop off like a random great shot. And my least favorite scene in the movie was the driving scene when I think it's like he's basically like going to the space station or something. Like he's like driving to
So
get on the
long.
plane. It's like really needlessly long. And the problem is that like most of the shots like aren't that pretty. Like it's just like a point of view shot from the car, like driving along the road. But then like all of a sudden we get this gorgeous shot that's like literally like 25 years ahead of its time, of like this like Japanese skyline that's all like neon lit and like super vaporwave looking. And it like reminded me of something out of like Lost in Translation or something with like all the driving. Like I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but like the opening scene is they're just like it's like a point of view shot through like nighttime Japan and like all of these bright lights flashing at them. And it's like I want to say like it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that that scene is a direct reference to this one, because it's that like similar and that like forward thinking. It's so good. That shot like shot me out of my seat. Let's see. Yeah, definitely like proto cyberpunk or like proto vaporwave in the way that like it influenced some later shots like that.
Definitely.
Okay, so here's another cool thing in relation to the anti-science thing. Did you guys notice how many things that Kelvin burns through this movie? Kelvin is always burning things. So first off, there's all these shots of him like burning scientific documents, which like kind of goes in line with like the whole like anti-science thing that he's like burning his thesis or whatever it was. And then he gets this blood sample from his wife that's or like his fake wife or whatever, and they're sort of like doing tests on it to see like how she's like natural or unnatural or whatever, and he decides to burn it with acid, he says. And then let's see what else. They burn the planet with radiation. They specifically use the word burn, I think. And then he burns one more thing. I think when he was a kid, I think there was like some memory sequence where he's like burning sticks and he like lights a rocket. Let's see. I think that's it. But he like burns like 4 or 5 things throughout this movie. It's definitely a trope. I don't know. I'm sort of like trying to like fit it into like what this could be saying. If it's just like along with like the anti-science thing, or like what it's supposed to mean. Also, those whole like memory shots of him when like his mother just like pops up out of nowhere is like, ooh, so beautiful. And this movie made me realize that like literally all you have to do to make a captivating shot, get an attractive woman, put the camera on her face for like 30 straight seconds. That's a beautiful shot. Yep. I don't know. Did you have any ideas, Matthew, on like the burning thing with like he burns his thesis and he burns some sticks and a rocket, and then he burns the blood. Like, why is Kelvin always burning things? Is it just like an
I mean, I
anti-science
don't know if
thing?
that'd be anti-science. Isn't it the whole idea that like fire's the beginning of all knowledge? It's like the Greeks. That's why the Greek god of like, or not, I guess the Titan of knowledge, Prometheus, is the one who gave fire to humans in the myths and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But he does like literally
Yeah.
burn science documents. So it's like kind of like, I guess maybe you could say it's like reflexive, like it
Mhm.
destroys itself. I don't know. True. Like the primitive science, like the first science.
So
Boy,
at
let's
the end,
see.
he's literally on Solaris, correct?
Yeah, he went down to the surface of the planet because some islands rose up.
Hmm. 'Cause I didn't know. I wasn't sure if that was like supposed to be real or not.
Yeah, I think it's definitely real.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. So, I want to talk. Maybe you guys can give me some advice on how to tackle this because 2001: A Space Odyssey has a lot of similarities and contrasts with this movie, and I want to talk about them because it's really interesting. Huh? Oh, 2001 came out like a few years earlier, but I don't want to like if I don't. Is it a bad move to analyze 2001: A Space Odyssey considering it's still in the running?
I think you can talk about it. I mean, like heavy analyze it because it came out first anyway, so the need to analyze 2001 isn't super necessary. But you can analyze this movie's relationship to 2001 because 2001 is the to this day still a prototypical science fiction movie.
Exactly, right? And I just like love the basically like the way they take sort of like a similar like if you like wrote down these two movies, they would seem so similar on paper, right? Like uh basically like they're both really slow aesthetic movies about space and being on a space station and there's some like entity that's not human, right? Like there's so many similarities, but like the way they do things is so different. Like the set design in particular accomplishes completely different things. Like the set design here like is so like it almost comes across as like hokey sometimes or like not being like real or like accurate or realistic science fiction. Like it almost seems like a set, you know?
Yeah,
But it does such a better job of like conveying space. Not space as in like outer space, but space as in like the area, right? Because like, do you guys remember that scene where, or like that kind of place on the spaceship where there's those like two random like rectangular prisms that are like chunked into the ground and like they have mirrors on them?
yeah.
So that's like so cool to me because like they don't look that realistic. They don't look like they would reasonably be part of a space station for any like realistic
Mhm.
reason, but they do such a goddamn good job of like showing us the space because like there's no scene right around this reflective surface. It's just like one shot and then like basically a mirror, and like you don't even realize that it's a mirror for a really long time. You can't even tell. It just looks like a different color, maybe a doorway. But then all of a sudden, like you realize it's a mirror, right? And so you realize that this whole extra section of the space that you can't actually see on camera is like available to you, if that makes sense. It's like so
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, that is like a really neat like trick. But is there anything besides that? Because I still don't feel like I completely understand what you mean. Because that's like a very specific thing, right? Like using a mirror like that.
Yeah, well, just in general, like the way the like I basically the contrast is that like the actual like scientific equipment, like in keeping with the theme of this movie, doesn't seem that scientific or realistic, but we have a much better sense of like where the space station, like where the rooms in the space station like fit together, right? Like because we don't have that many different rooms and we repeat the same rooms like fairly frequently, and the space station is relatively small, excuse me. So like I feel like we are left with like a very good understanding of like where everything is, and it's like laid out very logically, like almost like that's like Derek's thing. You can probably talk about that, Derek, because the logic of the space always makes sense to me.
Hmm. I honestly can't remember the scene you're talking about.
I think kill means in general for like how our space has been established in terms of like characters never really leave to
Oh,
places that we
so
don't know
or at
about.
least he sets it up so that we know where everyone will go if they do go. It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's a very good touch. He always keeps entrances and exits in mind, so you see where people come in and out. Like I picked that up on the scene where they're like philosophizing or whatever about whatnot. You see every character come through the doorway into the study.
You mean like
He's talking about like the one where
Yeah,
in the
the
boardroom,
boardroom.
right,
I
Derek?
guess it's a boardroom.
oh
Yeah, that's a great scene too. But like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that's cool you picked up on that.
And like you see where like I don't know when I think his name's Kelvin, right? Or Chris Kelvin,
Yeah.
Chris Crinkle. But he like comes onto the ship and you see him in like the entryway or whatever with all the tangled stuff and whatnot. So it's kind of like you see where he's going and it's always logically set up.
super smart in that respect, and I think it's because we kind of predicated on safety. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways.
hmm
One thing we haven't really touched on is just the relationship between Calvin and his wife.
True.
What do you guys feel about these two's dynamic?
Kind of weird.
It's so. Oh, it's so smart.
So what?
But kind of weird and so smart. Let's go with this, Derek. Why do you think it's kind of weird? And then Caleb can reply about why it's so
Because I
smart.
don't. It's set up as like this woman has like zero agency of her own.
Well, in this specific case, she literally does
Yeah,
have zero.
she literally doesn't. And it's so
He's
weird.
literally his memory.
That's what he goes for. I don't know. It's such a weird dynamic that it just like I don't know. This might be like a little too much, but it reminds me of like Blade Runner 2049, where it's like the AI girl who just like I'll do whatever you want. What Mr. Android? I don't know. They're just kind of flaccid.
I haven't seen that movie, but I definitely like think you're getting at what makes this dynamic so great. Like it is weird. Like it's supposed to be weird, right? Like it's not meant to be like a comfortable romance between these two, or even a romance in general. It's supposed to be like sort of tenuous, or like there's supposed to be like a tension there, which is like why it's great. Because like on the one hand, he's getting exactly what he wants. He's getting his wife back that he presumably has been missing for decades, right? But at the same time, like she realizes that she has like that's the crazy thing, right? She has no agency, but she's not like an android that's like doing whatever he wants because like she realizes that she has no agency. And there's like this great exchange where he goes, do you love me? And then they reply, as if you don't know, which is like such an interesting because like there's this like I love you or like do you love me like trope pops up so much in movies with like a different like witty response, right? And this is like such an interesting take on it, in my opinion.
You know what it's similar to? In fact, it's kind of similar in a lot of respects. I think it's well, there's definitely also a meta. We talk about the meta respect to this movie, and there's definitely a meta respect to the movie I'm about to bring up, which is the Purple Rose of Cairo, right?
Yeah, true.
Where I mean, he in that movie, his character basically is meant to serve her. I do not remember the name of the girl who Rose of Power is.
Mia.
It's
Isn't it Mia
Mia
as well?
Farrow's character. Is it? Probably. Seems like a yeah. Story checks out. He's meant to serve her, right? In the same way, she's meant to serve him, but obviously they have logic in and of themselves, right? Because serving doesn't necessarily look like doing exactly what you say all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can mean a lot of things, and I also think what's like interesting about it, just conceptually, is that it is weird, right? Like, why would he want this, right? Like, and we talk about this tension that there is between them inherently, but I think what's maybe kind of begs the question is why is this sort of inherent tension any worse than the inherent tension that is in every single romance, right? But it's for
That's
different
totally
reasons.
true. Yeah, I think like it's so brilliant because it like this is like another level of like reigning in the house, right? Like Solaris like doesn't get why it doesn't work. Like
Mm-hmm.
we as humans understand like it shouldn't reign in the house, or like if you're going to have a romance, like it can't be like this. But like Solaris like doesn't get it. It's like this guy like wants his wife back, so boom, here's your wife back. This is exactly everything you need. But like because I guess maybe because we're humans and we're kind of weird, like we don't find that satisfying, right? Like we almost
That's
like
what.
need there to
It's
be a
once again,
struggle.
it's like it's basically Purple Rose of Power is just the dark side version of this, right? Where it's like in that movie, she goes with the real, and look how that turns out for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and in this movie, he goes with the not real, and he seems to be pretty content. You know, like this is his choice after he's like actually being able to consider both options. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not what you would expect, right? Like I think we would typically in a story like this see like the Purple Rose of Cairo version was like, yeah, I have to go for what's real. But in this, like he's a logical guy. We don't see him behaving irrationally, really. Like he's a relatively reliable character. And we see him like, like basically for the entirety of the movie, like calmly consider this decision and make his choice at the end and then seem pretty happy with it. Like there's never any like there's never like any like, you know, backlash from his choice, right? Or at least we don't see it. It's not being like presented to us like within the context of the story, so we can only assume there's like not that much of a judgment being made about it. I don't know. It's sort of interesting to like place this ending on like some sort of like moral scale, if you want to call it that. Because on the one hand, we do have to assume that like it's barren, right? Like it's raining
Mhm.
indoors. There's all this ice, so it's kind of like the. It feels like it's wanting to say that like it's Solaris' misunderstanding of what we want, and it's not going to be as lush as real life because it's technically a construct. But on the other hand, like I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I guess what I'm trying to say is even if it's not real life, it's just who cares, right? Even
Yeah,
if it doesn't have lushness, whatever lush means, it has this other thing. Like so often we don't want to grab happiness because it doesn't kind of confine to what like normal, what it means to be normal, right?
yeah.
And but I think the point is it doesn't matter. We should just grab happiness. There's not always a science to everything, right? There isn't strict rules. Sometimes things just are, and it's just that's what the human spirit's truly about. Is just doing it just because, not because of whatever societal implications there may be,
That's
or
truly
I guess
true.
yeah.
I think it kind of fits with the whole like basically like the big quote of this movie, which is we don't need other worlds, we need a mirror. Man needs man. Like
Mhm.
that's what Solaris is, right? It's a mirror. So you're ultimately finding what man needs. Like he needs himself, and this Solaris basically is functioning as a mirror to just show you what you need to see in yourself, I guess, or something like that. But that whole like monologue like really got me thinking so much because I would say like a lot of people, if you just like ask them on the street, would be like really excited to like contact other species, right? But like if you also were to like poll people and like show them different outcomes of like what alien life might be like, I think people would become increasingly excited the more similar to us it is, right? Like if you told people that we found life on another planet and it was bacteria, they'd be like, oh wow, that's really cool. If you told them that it was like an animal, they'd be really excited. If you told them that it was like really close to a human or like humanoid, they would be like, oh my god, it's like science fiction. This is exactly what we want, right? But like, why is it that we want something that we already have 7 billion of here? You know what I mean? Like, we already have it. What are you searching for, dude? Like, you already got it. And like the thing that people like humans need to make themselves more happy, like it's just like we already have it. Like kind of like you said, like it's happiness. It's right there. Just grab it. Like, it's like so powerful. Like the way they describe it is like so poetic and simple, but like yeah, so poignant. And I guess that's like a great. I'm sure it came from the novel because it's so literary in that respect.
Okay. Last thoughts on Solaris.
As a little fun side note, there's a quote where he says, "They say there was only one bad thing about sleep, that it's close to death." Did you guys catch that? Very, very similar to probably the greatest or one of the most well-known rap lyrics of all time.
Oh, what epic is that? I don't know what you're talking about.
I never
Yeah.
sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. I wonder if Nas took inspiration from this movie. It seems too similar to be a coincidence, but who knows?
Is that an Eminem song or? If it's not from Stan, it's probably not the most famous kill. Calm down there, okay? Jeez Louise. No, that is a cool little side note though. I also think what's cool is that we talked like in passing about the boardroom scene, but I think it's so cool how it's set up because he frames it like a painting. And
Yeah.
there's this reflexivity of these paintings in the background, which actually bring out how it itself looks like a painting.
Yes. Oh god, it's so cool, dude. Another great scene is when he's sleeping, right? And it pans across his bed and it's empty on the other half, and then it goes to him, and then he wakes up and it immediately, I can't remember if it pulls out or if it pans back, but then as soon as it pulls out, we see his wife next to him that just appeared like as soon as he woke up. And it's so effective because it shows like that she is just like being conjured out of his mind. But the way that it like incorporates like the cinematography into that is so cool.
Totally agree. Derek,
The acting
any
was
last thoughts?
subpar.
Jeez, okay.
Really?
Which acting was
Primarily the
subpar?
woman.
Who's acting? Really? I liked her acting.
Wah, 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 wah.
You really? Okay, what were your thoughts on her acting? 'Cause I'm actually very surprised he was taking it.
I don't really recall anything in particular, but I did write down in one of my
That's
notes,
probably my
great
problem
acting.
is that like what's his name? The main character, Chris, was actually really good. But pretty much everyone else was like not anywhere near him. And the woman especially, considering that she was like obviously his counterpart, was a letdown.
Could that have been intentional though? Because she's like a
I mean,
construct.
perhaps, but all the same,
Like, I guess, okay, are there any scenes in particular
pretty
you
much
thought
as
like the
soon as
acting was weak?
she was like introduced, that's like almost immediately what I was thinking about.
I guess I really don't see that. I really should give me a specific scene. Like, I think in the first scene she's pretty strong. Like, I don't know. Like, all my memories of her are good. Like, I think her dying, like her like getting poisoned, is so good. Like, the acting there is super strong. I think.
Also, I wasn't sure how much of this would be like. Sorry, I'm not sure if this would be like acting or considered editing tricks, but like when she's like being resurrected, I couldn't tell exactly how they did that, but it was still really damn cool and probably had something to do with her acting.
I'd
I
have to
think that I
relook
know
at
what you're
it.
talking about. I think that's more editing, to be honest.
She
Yeah.
like dies in reverse, I think, basically.
I mean, I think there's still an acting component there, though. I know what you're talking about. I just like we need to like actually look at her performance. I guess like I just like, took it for granted that her because I just thought her performance was strong. Everything I can think about once again, like the poisoning scene, like levitating scene, obviously like her first scene where like he kills her. I don't know. I think it's all strong. I actually think he was the weaker of the two, which is like why I'm so surprised. Like her bad acting was not even on my radar. We're about to get to a movie with some bad acting, and I will be glad to talk about that. But I don't think this is the one to criticize.
Yeah, at the very least, in my opinion, I definitely wouldn't go so far to say like any of the acting was like standout, but it certainly wasn't bad enough to distract me from the movie.
I don't know. At the point of the halfway mark, I was pretty bored, so I noticed especially.
I
And
see.
I was just kind of looking for anything, and I just kind of noticed that, I don't know, all their expressions were almost like, I don't know, the most obvious thing they could have done is how I would explain it.
Yeah, that's kind of her point. She's not supposed to be like an uber. She's not supposed to have these complex emotions because like she's inherently not complex. Well, she is complex, but only in certain respects, right? Like I think like in the scenes where she's like actually contemplating stuff. Like once again, like the scenes with the argument, like we're talking about in the boardroom and stuff, like we're talking about whether she's real or not. Like I think she's complex and she's doing like really good things.
At the
I
very
also think
least,
that
I think there
maybe
should have been some progression of some kind, and I didn't really notice any.
to me, I definitely think it seemed like the acting was like intentionally understated, right? Because like a lot of like really crazy, absurd stuff is happening on the space station, but I think like in any other movie, particularly a modern movie, you would have like the main character like freaking out, going like, "Oh my god, this can't be happening! Why is my wife here? Ah!" But like he never does that. He sort of just like takes it like he's obviously like unsettled, but he doesn't have like an absurd reaction, which I think is super cool because it's really realistic, right? Like if something really crazy, outlandish, and unbelievable happens in your life, you're probably not gonna start like freaking out and having a panic attack and being all dramatic about it. You're probably gonna just like sit there and not say or do anything and try and figure out what's happening. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like shock, right? It's like I have no idea what the fuck is going on, so I'm just gonna think and not react and just get through this. And that's usually what happens in like really, traumatic, stressful, confusing situations. So I think that it came off as like realistic. Like if you were in this situation, you'd probably just be like him. You'd be like, what? Like you wouldn't necessarily be doing any sort of like over the top crying or really like emphatic
Yeah,
stuff.
that's good. My problem is primarily with everyone else.
I see.
Even more toned down because she's like his memory. Like she's not even. I think that's the point. Is like she literally can't have like these like really connective sort of human emotions because so it kind of ruin it. You know what I mean?
I thought that isn't.
Yeah, then we would have like no reason for him to like not want to be with her, you know?
But he doesn't. Does want to be with her.
But yes,
I
but it's
know
a
my,
decision
my
he has to make.
yeah, my point is that like it's at least like a close decision, right? And so like her not being able to have any emotions of her own and her not being able to exist when he's not conscious is like some of the main reasons why we would like counterbalance the decision, right? Like some of the reasons we would think, okay, maybe don't stay with her, maybe we go back to Earth. So like it's sort of intentional and like basically like giving us a reason for him, giving us a reason to want him to go back to Earth.
And I think he kind of has to almost. Like I didn't think he
Yeah,
was going to Solaris.
yeah. I thought he was just gonna go home and that was gonna be the end of the movie, but then he goes to Solaris. And that's
Derek
it.
still wasn't sure.
I had
You
no
watched
idea
Yeah.
if it was real or fake. I wasn't sure if it was like his brainwaves or whatever that are doing their thing on Solaris.
Oh, that could be true
I was
too.
really confused. Like,
No,
Actually, that could be true.
if so, then I feel like because what's even the point of showing that then though?
Yeah, I don't think that's what happened, but I can definitely like that's definitely like a reasonable.
Do you think it's like I guess I could see it both ways, but then
Like
I
he
think if you're gonna
definitely
do
went to
that,
Solaris.
I
He went to
disagree. I don't think
Solaris.
it's
That's like the
reasonable
whole.
though. Because
No,
no, I think if you're gonna make that point, you can still show him on Earth. You can do that exact same scene, and then you can cut to Earth.
what I mean is that it's a reasonable misunderstanding.
Yeah, sure.
Like he obviously went to Solaris, but I'm saying like it is conceivable to parse it that way.
I'd have been so hyped if like Solaris like using memories and they should feel so sad because if they wanted, that'd be a total own thing. But
let's make Solaris 2.
well, he already exists, right?
Well, I know there was a remake, but I'm talking about a sequel.
Okay, I'm down. But it's like just like on Solaris.
Yeah, they're just hanging out. It's a rom-com.
Can we combine it with Purple Rose of Cairo? They're just watching that movie on Solaris, and it's just like so many levels of meta, it just gets ridiculous.
Let's do it.
Okay, but we should probably move on.
Yep.
Unless Derek wants to criticize anyone else's acting performances.
I don't know. I already lumped them all together, so it's fine.
Okay, fair enough. Well, our next movie is The Passenger by Michelangelo Antonini, which I fully expected to be Italian. That was like a nice surprise.
Yeah, for real. I was like, wait a minute, like, Jack Nicholson's in this?
Yes, exactly. I'm like, wait, what? It's Italian?
Is this my movie?
Yeah, it wasn't. So that was cool. The Passenger is about this guy. Derek, what's his name?
Which guys? Which guys?
His actual name.
I don't remember his actual name, to be honest.
Okay.
Let me.
It is apparently David Locke.
I knew it was with an L.
That's right.
Locke. He's out in the Sahara. I guess he's trying. He's like a journalist, right? And he's making like a documentary. He finds this guy Robertson, who he doesn't. Does Robertson even like actually say anything that he does? Like, does he explain?
He says that he's like traveling the world, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And Robertson dies like not that tragically in the context of the film, but he dies from a heart attack. And Locke basically takes his identity. Leaves his wife back home, who is cheating on him. She's like super guilty. So she's trying to find out like everything about his death.
Yeah.
She was cheating on him?
Yeah.
Wait, I know that she started like sleeping with like the producer or whatever that guy was, but wasn't that after?
Like,
wait,
I'm pretty sure they showed like the scene like pretty early on of her like with another man, and she's like,
yeah.
I must have just not caught it. That's okay. That changes my interpretation of this movie a little bit.
Should. Definitely changes things up. But yeah, she's cheating on him, and that's why she like wants to do this because she feels so guilty.
I see.
But sorry, I got thrown off. So he leaves her, and he basically goes to like live his life, as now Robertson. But turns out Robertson's life is pretty sketchy. He's like with this rebel group, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
What are they rebels of?
So they're like basically going against the government, like the same like dictator guy that he interviewed in that one scene.
Yeah,
so they're going up against that guy, and he was basically selling weapons to these rebels.
What is he a
like
dictator
a
of? What country?
country, I believe. Like, it's not supposed to be like a specific country.
Okay. I really hope that's true, because if not, that would be pretty disrespectful. So yeah, he was like he's like a weapons man. Like he sold weapons to them. Or did he sell weapons, or was he just the in-between guy?
If you're selling weapons, you're pretty much just the in-between. It's not like he's making them in his backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. He's selling weapons to these guys, and for whatever reason, Locke decides to continue this path. Although I feel like he really didn't have to. Like, it would have been crazy.
Well, at first I think it was just like
them.
He didn't really know what was going on. He didn't like realize, and then once he did it like the 100%. First time, he was just kind of like so far deep that if he didn't, he was just gonna get killed. And he was like, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
and
it's
obviously
good money.
It's good money.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
you got a lot of money.
It's like if you get a lot of money, and it's like I'm gonna get like these gun runners or these people who want to like kill people in general mad at me.
But the thing is, he keep. I don't know. I feel like he didn't
Probably didn't have to, but I mean,
he runs away with this girl. What is the girl's name?
She's never given a name.
Oh, she doesn't have a name. Good job, Matthew. Turns out this girl was just like this young college student, and to have like this affair basically where he does reveal to her that he is in fact not Robertson. He is Locke. Meanwhile, his wife is kind of trying to piece together what's happening with him. She like gets Robertson's like the actual Robertson's luggage and realizes no, sorry, she gets Locke's luggage and sees that the passports are switched.
Yeah.
So she realizes something's up, and she then and meanwhile Robertson, he's like in this like small like little town. Where is he's just like in a small town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in like Spain, right?
Yeah, he's somewhere in Spain. With the girl, he tells her to go, and then basically he gets assassinated by. And this is what I was confused about. He gets assassinated by the
Yes.
the rebel group.
That's the dude he like initially like.
Yeah.
You see the scene like murder someone, and then he's like, okay, and then you see Locke give him a gun or like I don't know, do a deal with him. It's like, okay, this is the head rebel dude, and then you also see him come out of the car and walk in the building and hear the gunshot.
Yeah, so he gets murdered by the rebel guy, and then the police come right at that moment, really just minutes off. That was kind of tragic. And then his wife, I guess to save face, or I guess we can talk about that later. But the wife ends up saying that she never knew who he was, never knew this man, and yeah, that's it.
I didn't catch that last part. That's weird.
And I was like,
Yeah.
Was that after he dies?
Yep.
Like, and there's
Yeah.
all like the cops streaming in?
she's
Weird,
like,
I must have.
And then
I never
the girl
knew
was
that
like,
man.
yeah, I knew him. He was Robertson.
Oh.
Which is significant because she doesn't know that he is Locke. But obviously, if she tells these people that he's Locke, and then the wife's right there, she's gonna be like, "You're fucking lying, hussy," and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think
Yeah.
that like the girl's
Also.
I think it's significant, but it's like
Yeah.
kind of goes with what we know about her.
She's a writer
Yeah.
guy.
That's very true.
So what do we think of the movie?
I thought, interestingly, it had similarities to Solaris in the beginning, that it was really like slow and drawn out,
Yeah,
and also like had a lot of silence.
Especially
Yeah.
the beginning.
I thought the beginning was definitely way too slow for my taste. It definitely picked up and got good, but I think the beginning is like, why do we see him like driving around in this like dusty van for like 20 minutes? Like, I don't care.
This might be my Southwest literature coming out, but it's kind of like the whole idea of like the desert or whatnot. And interesting enough, Nicholson's in a very important Southwest film, Chinatown. It's kind of doing the same thing. It's kind of like the difference between life and death is water, and the desert is death, and like the town is life. So it's kind of like he's on the boundary of life and death, and then he's as a gun runner when he becomes one on the boundary of life and death. But I do agree
cool.
that it's a little too
I
long.
feel like it's so. And also, okay, for me the big issue is just like, look, I get it. Antonini comes from the Italian neorealist, but can you at least get people who have like acted like a single time before, like maybe like in a school play or something? Like those guys are literally reading lines. Like they
Max, you sound like Derek
so
now.
bad.
I don't.
Do you
I
disagree?
know. I think
Do you
those guys were
guys
really bad.
like,
I don't think they
ever acted before. Over under on the amount of plays that they have collectively been in, like all the guys with the hotel and stuff, at 1.5. You think collectively those people have been in more than 1.5 plays? I would take the under. Sorry.
But then I don't know. That's why probably I like this more than most neorealism films. Is that the main characters actually have acted. So like the wife has acted, the Robinson has acted, the guy that she cheats on Locke with, Nicholson has acted. Nicholson's obviously acted.
Well, you think like Nicholson's acted? That's crazy.
The guys
my
have
bad
never
then.
acted before. Like, Locke? He has not acted. Come on, Derek. Get out of here.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. It was very refreshing from watching, I don't know, St. Francis or whatever, and with every dude like never have acted.
Jesus Christ. Get over it.
I'm never gonna get fucking over it because the acting was terrible in that movie. The acting in that. If you say the acting in this is.
We need like an acting expert.
If you say the acting
like,
in St. Francis wasn't bad, then you can't say this acting wasn't bad because they are almost on par.
No, Derek. These guys have literally like they are. I would not be surprised if there was literally like a car into the street and it's like the first time they read their line. Like there is like nothing in there. Like
Good
they
thing
are
is that they don't get many scenes.
And what do you want, sir? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it was. So,
I definitely had a good laugh.
Come on. Yeah. Okay. I get kind of took you out of the realist part now. It's not in your realist. But how else we feel about the movie?
Thematically, it was really strong.
Yeah, I agree. I like how he dies as Roberson too, right? Like, and I think as we kind of talk about, Derek's talking about this like boundary of life and death as a gunman, but he also, as you live is as you die, right? And he lives the life of Roberson, and that is the life he dies. I think that's like so important for him, almost, you know. Mm-hmm. Maybe he doesn't know that's how it goes down. But
I'm gonna be relating this movie a lot to Southwest Film, but because that is the cause I've been doing. But this reminds me of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas a lot. Because ultimately, this is kind of like this guy is escaping his ordinary, regular life through whatever means he can achieve in Fear and Loathing, that's drugs and whatnot. And this is him doing this exciting life with like actually someone he cares about, the girl. So it's kind of like this is him trying to fill the hole in his heart, which is ultimately, I think, the American dream, and ultimately the dream.
But
that's a bold statement. I don't know if that's the American dream.
But it's like it definitely doesn't work. Like that's the whole thing is that you can't run away from it. It's always going to catch up to you.
I relate this to Manifest Destiny in my essay that you can currently read after I've written it for my class. However, you cannot right now because it's not done. But yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. And this is kind of archetypal, I think, very largely, because when in creative writing, you're told characters have a hole in their heart that they're trying to fill, or an objective that they're trying to achieve, which is in regards to themselves basically filling a hole. So basically a character has something that they need to achieve or do to fill something within themselves, basically. Or some kind of character flaw of some kind.
So what do you think that is for Jack Nicholson's character?
I think for Jack Nicholson's character, it's I think a very postmodern problem in that the work he has is not fulfilling. I think that's a very postmodern problem. You see that in a lot of films. Characters that are like, oh, I hate my job, like Office Space and whatnot. This is kind of like that, except for
do you think it's much that?
He wants to achieve something.
I think
he wants freedom, basically. It's pretty much just freedom is the way I took it.
And I was about to get to that.
I think it's a lot more from the family perspective, though, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Relationship more
freedom, the American dream.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
Pursuit.
That would be stronger if it was actually set in America.
I'm just relating it to it. So the fact that Michelangelo Antonini has basically done a movie on Manifest Destiny and trying to achieve the edge of freedom is kind of interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, I agree. And what I liked about this movie is that, thematically, it wasn't overwhelming. I don't feel like they were trying to tell us a ton of different things at the same time, which it worked because thematically it was clean and everything in the movie, it wasn't like we were being hit over the head with it, but everything in the movie did something to like point towards this theme or like subtly advance the theme, right? So I don't feel like it didn't get like bogged down in like talking about a bunch of philosophical stuff that didn't have to. It just kind of like kept in pace with like what it was trying to say and did it cleanly and
I
well.
agree.
But then of course, and it also presents both sides of it all, right? Because you definitely see this happiness that he has in meeting this girl
Yeah.
who like legitimately works for him and all of this, but at the same time, hey, he doesn't work for her. As much as she works for him, he is like,
Yeah.
pretty objectively not great for her, even if she thinks that he is. And secondly, like there's all these ironies popping up, right? Like we said, like obviously everyone catches up to him at the end. Then there's also this thing where like his job, was to interview these same rebels, right? That's what he was
Yeah.
there for. And him getting away from his job is just basically being the flip side of his job. Like
Yeah.
he just is the rebels now.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Like you can't get away from it. It's always gonna your
Yeah.
bad habits are gonna cling to you. You're never gonna like really change. You can change, where you are and your name and your lifestyle, but all of the same, the skeletons in your closet are still gonna be there, I guess.
But you can be enjoying yourself more while they're there, right?
Yeah, that's like such a good way of putting it. Like even though like all this bad stuff is still gonna happen to you, it can still be like a beautiful change of scenery, which to me is what
Yeah.
is shown by like the very last scene, or like the very last shot, I guess I should say, which I found to be like absolutely stunningly beautiful. Which is like after he's dead, and we kind of get this like really big wide shot of like the little like
Mm-hmm.
hotel or whatever that place is, and I think there's like a sunset going on. There's all these cars pulling up, and like it's just gorgeous. Like it's such a beautiful shot to like counterbalance the sadness of our protagonist dying. That it's like I guess like basically what you said, right? Like even though you could never really escape from your problems, running from them might be kind of fun. Maybe it's a way we can take it.
If
Yeah, like there's irresponsibility that we like assume there, but like being irresponsible is not like make you a bad person necessarily.
yeah,
Or it doesn't have to. You're just being happy. And there's like obviously that thing where it's like the only reason that the wife even cares is because she cheated on him, right? And she feels like shit that like how she treated him. You know? Why do you think the wife didn't identify him? I know Caleb just not realizing this, but do you have any ideas?
I think I don't know. It's like maybe it's because she doesn't have to. Like as simple as that. If she does, What does that achieve? Her husband.
Well, would it like
Her
endanger her, right?
husband
Because
would
like
be therefore like a gun runner or whatnot. I suppose yeah, it could endanger her, but ultimately I don't think she even has to.
Okay, sure, but this is like literally our last, like these are our last lines. You know what I mean? Like I agree. Like okay, yes, for like a logical standpoint, she doesn't, but I think there's more to it than that. So let me give you some ideas because there's some things I was bouncing between. Oh, so like you're saying, it's part of the reason is just because like it would not make sense to. Another part of the reason, maybe she feels bad. Maybe like she's realizing now that like somehow she just knows that this is once again she wants him to die as how he lived, right? And she's basically been once again she's basically doing all this stuff because she feels like shit for cheating on him, and like this is her like actual redemptive
Hmm.
moment with him, right? This is her apology. Like this is her
And she
like, trying to make
can
up to him.
thereby
Then my
let
third
him
thing
be
is
stay as the person he wanted to be instead of the person she like is trying to force him to become.
exactly. And then there's also the third option, which is maybe she's being very literal there. You know, that she does not know who this man is. Like, obviously, she knows that it is. She knows who
Yeah,
it is, right? But she does not know the man he's become, right? Like, this person is not recognizable to her, like on like a like emotional
yeah. He's
level,
not the
not like
guy
on this
who did like
does
shitty
recognize him.
exposés on like politicians that
Yeah,
didn't give him any answers.
yeah. She was like so
Hmm.
embarrassed about it too, right? She was like ashamed of like how like he wouldn't ask the hard hitting questions.
I think that's a great way to parse it. That like yeah, it's like because it's sort of like a counterbalance, like what we just kind of talked about, where like you can't run from your problems, right? But like it's showing that like you couldn't run from his problems, but he could like change as a result of his experiences. So it's not like it's all for nothing.
And maybe we should just let people, you know, like. I think when she gets there, it's like she doesn't even know why she's there anymore. You know. I guess maybe we should let's back it up because maybe we can also understand this better from like, right? Not just a shot we haven't talked about yet, which is that big long shot where he dies. What do you guys think about like this decision to make it like? It's like what 6 minutes long.
Yeah, I love it. I love it a lot.
Well, walk us through, Derek.
You want me to literally? Oh, okay. I was
Why
about
do
to
you
say
love
you want me to literally walk through all 6 minutes of it, but like pretty much like I don't know. It is so it's
Let's get the main idea where it's like it's framed initially through this window and it kind of like slowly
yeah, and
creeps up,
it's
right?
so like antithetical of like everything you'd expect. Like it is a very dramatic moment for the movie, and like every probably director would have been like, okay, I'm gonna show this scene, or at least I'm gonna have like see the characters' faces or something. But it's like the complete opposite. Just seeing like everyone around the building just like being like so nonchalant for so long, and then all of a sudden like the chaos of the police cars coming in being like the unsettling moment. It's kind of like the bystander effect in motion. It's kind of like the sheep, like or like the deer in headlights, just like or not even that, just like I guess sheep, yeah, just hurting themselves over the edge, just like regardless. But it's just so interesting because it's like.
And you know what I think the effect it really has though is our last moments with the character alive, or like our last moments with them, right? Obviously, that is our final. That's how the character died to us. He doesn't die on screen. His legacy ends with this girl, right?
Yeah,
that is the last we
that's
see of him
really
alive.
good.
Is him talking to her. So our last moments of him are with her, not of him dying. And that at that point, he's effectively gone. You know, he's and whatever that even means, right? And I'll let you guys kind of maybe discuss what that means. I'm not
That's him
entirely
at
sure.
his best,
But
like
he is
with her. That's him at his best.
Yeah, that's Robertson. You know what I mean? And everything after that doesn't even matter, right? Once he says goodbye to her, once he tells her to go, once he acknowledges, in that way, he is becoming responsible. You know, he's telling her, "Don't stay," right? And we don't know him too much before, right? We can assume that he wasn't responsible with his wife, and now he's making this like really responsible decision with this girl, and basically, telling her. I wish I wrote down more dialogue of like that scene. Do you guys have any quotes from that exchange between the two? Because that scene's also
Yeah.
like with the whole painting and everything.
Yeah,
I wrote down like
that scene was
sort of
actually
stuff.
incredible. I didn't have
But,
any quotes.
Do you have any quotes from that? Yeah, me neither.
I didn't write down any quotes for these movies
Actually,
because I was just watching them.
Fair enough. But actually the same thing. I've been like weird about that lately. It's like a whole issue. But yeah, I think there's something to that. Just our last moments are with her and him being responsible. Maybe him changing for the better. And this is the peak of Robertson. Everything else, it doesn't even matter, right? Like the politics behind it and all that. How he dies, what he looks like, how scared he is, his final emotion. Because I guess that's it, right? Because we want death because we want to see the final emotion, right? We want to see the expression on somebody's face when they die, right? And I'm sure Jack Nicholson could give something great, but his final emotions with her, and that's when it's laid on the line. And after that, it just plays out naturally. Caleb, I just monologued a long time. Save me.
I guess as kind of a tangent off of that, I guess I really like the fact that the character's death like isn't actually on screen. It's such like a great touch that like almost like lowers the emotional intensity of what's going on, if that makes sense. Like having a protagonist die is like a pretty big thing that not a lot of movies do. And so I think like not actually showing it.
I guess so.
I don't know. It's a big thing, like thematically at least, or at least for its film's narrative.
Yeah, well,
big deal.
Yeah, right. Like having a protagonist is like always like a really big deal, right? So like not even showing it is like pretty. Like it basically serves to like make it less of like a shock, and like removes the drama from the actual death and makes us focus more like on kind of the stuff that we've been talking about, right? Like the implications of like where was he at his happiest? What was like he like when he was last alive, right? Like, and we get like focus more on like the melancholy of his death more than like the drama and the shock of it, and we get to like see these like beautiful like pull out like pan shots at like the end, um, and like kind of view the drama of people's reactions to his death, right? So it does this like really cool thing where it like reduces the drama of this like what would normally be like a very heightened drama moment in order to like more um like cover the detail of the drama of like other moments better, I guess is maybe how I could put it.
Yeah, it makes his death not about him, right? It makes
Yeah,
the woman
exactly.
he left
Yeah.
behind, because that's the climactic moment is when they see him. Like, how is the wife going to react? How is this girl going to react to seeing him dead? That's our climax.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, yeah, like I said before, like it just fits with the theme of like no matter what you do, your problems are gonna stay there, right? And like even when this guy literally dies, his his problems are still there. Like his wife is still around, right? Like the cops are still pulling up to chase him, right? Like even after death, your problems don't go away. So like I mentioned before, like that's just what I love about this movie is that how like everything just like fits very neatly with the theme.
Okay.
And like
I disagree with what you said, though, because it's not about his problems don't go away, because they do go away. Once you're dead, there are no problems. Like, you have no problems.
I guess, but the point is that like if the point was that when you're dead your problems go away, like the movie would have ended with his death. Like, but we see the aftermath, right? We see that like, oh wait, like these problems aren't gone. Like they're literally not gone because they're on the camera screen. Like we're looking
Well,
at them.
they're not like
Yeah, I think like
they're not so much
problems
his
are-
problems as in like it's not about
Yeah,
him
exactly.
anymore.
Well, it's just like I guess like maybe not problems, but just
Yeah, I think problems is a good word.
circumstances or like
What you leave behind is still there, right?
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it fits with like my favorite scene slash line from the movie where like he's talking with that like old man in like the garden type thing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like there's like these kids running around and the old man's talking. I think he says, what does he say? They can't get away from us, right? Like they're gonna inherit all of our problems, right? Even when we're gone, like our children are basically gonna have to grow up with the world we created, and then they're just gonna end up like us, and then they're gonna die and pass on the problems that we gave them to their own children, right? So I guess that's kind of like the way I'm taking this like ending scene, right? Like even though he's dying, like all of his shit is basically staying around and like still having ripple effects on people.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good, better way to like kind of think about it. Oh yeah. So Caleb, I'm gonna show you a magic trick. Okay. You ready for this?
All right.
Okay. So I'm gonna say some words, and I'm gonna guarantee you that they are going to cause a reaction that is going to lead to a lot of gushing, and maybe like yes from another one of our podcast hosts. I won't say which one,
Okay.
but one of the ones that isn't me or you.
Okay.
Jack Nicholson is a good actor.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I definitely. That's probably the most refreshing thing, honestly, for me, because I watched Solaris and then I watched this, and obviously I already said I didn't like Solaris's acting, for the most part. So I was like, this is just a breath of fresh air. And
You think everyone else was as good of an actor though? Like I think like he like vastly outperforms everyone I've ever seen he's in.
Honestly, I didn't really. That's the kind of thing though. It's kind of like I don't know. He's at his best when he's with the girl, and the girl's like I don't know. I wouldn't say she's like a great actor, but with her, maybe it's kind of like extension of what y'all said with the girl in Solaris. It's kind of like not the point of her acting. It's kind of like what she means for this for him and like in general what their relationship means that I kind of focused on, and it was just like Jack Nicholson was good enough that I was just kind of like, I'm having a good time.
That's fair. I thought she was
Yeah.
a fairly decent actress. Like you said, like I don't think she didn't like pull anything off that was like incredible, but like she did a good job.
Yeah, I think she's like, yeah, it's like very solid. But yeah, like you're saying, it's nothing
Yeah,
spectacular with
solid.
her.
But yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm teasing something out. Uh, I'm gonna probably use this in my essay, so bear with me. Um, the whole idea of like the American dream in like the 50s is like the picket fence and the family, right? And that's what Locke is rejecting is the family. Obviously, there's a reason because it's not. It's like basically fake. His family, his wife, is cheating on him and doesn't like him. So there's definitely a hollowness to that. And ultimately, I think, and specifically in an essay I had to read for my class, it makes the argument that the American dream itself in the 50s, like the picket fence and whatnot, is hollow as well. In that there, in the undercurrent of it, kind of is, suicide and divorce that creeps on, and is kind of like the hollow underbelly of it. Yeah,
It's the madman
madman
of
of
it
it
all,
all. So the seeking of the American dream itself is hollow, and the seeking of the dream of like the family in this is hollow. So Jack Nicholson's decision to become the gunrunner Robinson and whatnot is thereby logical.
I guess it kind of also
right?
like fits with like your interpretation is sort of like thematically relevant too because it sort of fits with this theme of like the 50s were sort of like this bright new future, right? Like we're moving ahead, like it's going to be a great new society and all this sort of stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
you know, the same old problems are going to stick with us. Like we're not fundamentally changing anything. Like there's still going to be, like you said, divorce and suicide. It's not like we're like
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally changing human nature here. Like our problems are still going to stick around, and just because we make some superficial change doesn't mean that like all our problems are going to go away.
Why do you think the girl's unnamed and his wife is?
Because the girl is
Yeah,
like a dream, not literally, but she's like
But she's a
she's a much more like symbolically like beautiful, like
she's
redemptive,
she's like the
like
romance
figurative thing.
Locke wishes he could have like in forever. Like
but he can.
theoretically, I suppose, but realistically, in his situation, we see it's not the case that he can. And it's kind of like I don't know
Yes.
if he's and Antonini's making a comment on whether or not because I this might be a little bit too much of a stretch, but I think what the girl represent is kind of like a more innocent romance in it of itself, and the woman represents like very serious family and wedding and marriage in itself. Yeah,
It's like reality, right? Like in reality, your relationships are going to be a lot more like the one with the wife than they are with the
because
one with the
romance.
girl.
I've heard this quote like everywhere before. I couldn't give you a specific one. It's like romance eventually. I believe it was a poem actually, but like something like about romance is like a flame. Eventually, it goes out.
Yeah,
I think that was. I don't want to say Shelley. I don't think it was Shelley. That sounds more like Kant, but I don't think that was Kant either. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's like eventually it has something about like quote like that has to go out, and that's like the girl. That's why she's not named. She just like romance in and of itself, and kind of like the flame in and of itself. It's just a flame.
true.
Gosh, I kind of thinking about it. I don't know. This is like a bit. It feels like a bit like corny of an interpretation to me. I
All
think
right.
I have a different theory. I'm just now brainstorming, so sorry if it's like not. It's like well, I didn't even know that she
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a name until podcast. But I wonder if it's like because his wife
Mm-hmm.
is named, obviously. I wonder. I mean, maybe there's like a reality versus fantasy thing there, but maybe it's like the message of like the name itself isn't
Yeah,
even
I definitely
important,
think that's true
right?
too.
Like it's like the societal norm of like you have to get
Mm-hmm.
to know this person. But they don't ever really talk about, and she doesn't identify him as Locke. She identifies him
Mm-hmm.
as Robertson. Because they don't need to get to know each other. They just get to be with each other, and that's like something so much more special than kind of the conventional like getting to know someone and like having kids with them and like being like I guess all of the conventions that come with it are so much less important than just like being with somebody. And I think that is real. Like I don't like it
It's
saying
not.
it's
I don't.
fantasy
Yeah,
because
it's not
it
fantasy.
exists
I
for
think
these
it's just more like
characters.
romance versus marriage. Honestly, I think that's just like kind of the dichotomy of what those characters represent.
I feel like they probably weren't thinking of it like in those terms
Yeah.
at this point in time. That's like a pretty like forward way. But maybe those like conventional romance
Yeah.
versus like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like emotional, right? Like
I think
like a relationship versus a
romanticism
romance.
versus
Yes.
like romance, I suppose.
Like relationship
Yeah.
versus romance. I think that's the paradigm. Yeah.
I concur.
Any other thoughts on these movies?
I really like the architecture on
Oh
that like
yeah.
church or whatever thing they
Yeah.
were on when they were on the roof. Like they spend a lot of time there, and we get to see that building from like they were on the roof, and we get to see like its rooftop, and then we also get to like see its like the side of its like wall or whatever, like from below, like we kind of like look up at the building, and its architecture is really cool from all angles. It
I
was
have
very
a
entertaining to look at.
few points.
You're also
I'm gonna
very
start
cool
with
from all angles,
the
Caleb.
least
Thanks, dude.
controversial, and go to the most controversial. But how they do the expository flashback of explaining like Robertson and Locke's relationship, I thought was like super cool and unique. Like that was like amazing.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It's like whether or not you know it's real or fake is like up in the air until like obviously the dead guy starts walking into frame from like the balcony. But like before then, it's just like, oh, maybe this is just like in his head or whatever, and he's remembering the voices. But no, they're like literally just walking on the balcony in like the past, and you can like see them on the balcony. It was like so cool. I thought
Yeah, I thought so
that
too.
was
That was
a
a great
very
scene.
interesting way to do that. And then going back to the desert, how it's like super long or whatever. I love that. I think more now that I think about it, cause just like how beautiful it was. Like it's if I was Antonini and had the opportunity to shoot that, I'd have taken that long too. That was amazing. It was like so beautiful in like pure desolation. I don't know. It was like almost on like the surface of Mars, kind of to be cliche.
Yes, so I did not find it as beautiful, but I'm glad you did. Happy that you're
Gotta
happier
get
than
into
me.
some Southwest literature, and then you're
They're keeping literature. These are
literature,
films.
life. This is life in the Southwest, brother. Except for this is not the Southwest. This is South or North Africa, but it doesn't matter. Desert.
Yeah,
Desert.
Also, that's
We here in the Southwest love our desert.
It's actually-
All right.
It's just Africa. It's not
I
North
thought it was
Africa. by the
Sahara.
way, 'cause
Sahara's
the
in North
Sahara,
Africa.
so-
Yeah.
No, it's just Africa. Literally, South Africa is sub-Sahara. North Africa is above the Sahara, so the Sahara is just Africa.
The Sahara runs through North Africa. Because North Africa is like Chad and Nigeria and Cameroon, and that directly through in the Sahara. So. Oh, also Sudan and
Okay, we can continue.
obviously. But anyway, yeah.
Obviously.
And, okay, yeah. I was gonna
Okay.
say the most controversial thing. This is the most unique romance we've seen so far.
Come on, Derek.
Get
out of here.
More unique than literally an alien.
I don't think that was an alien, but it's just like I don't know. For me, the Solaris was very similar to like Blade Runner and whatnot. So I was like, oh, this is kind of like that. This is kind of like a person made for him basically. That kind of like unconditionally loves him and whatnot. So he just like has to decide whether or not he wants this fake thing or this real thing, which obviously has been done with Blade Runner. But I think it's still Solaris is very unique romance for sure. I just think but anyway.
How is it more unique though? It's like so generic to me. I do not understand how this is unique. This is like
I wouldn't say this is generic, but
it's okay. How is it unique? This is a lot.
There's like a lot of. I think we've already talked about why it's unique. All these themes and whatnot. I've like never seen a romance with these themes, or not never.
What themes?
That we talked about. We just talked
themes?
about like
What have you never seen a romance?
marriage versus
Okay, yeah.
romance itself and like etc. I talked about like life versus death. I guess you could say that's like Romeo and Juliet. So I guess that's fairly generic. But
But don't you think like the contrast between like a spicy new flame and your old naggy wife, isn't that like the concept between like behind like a
is
lot of
that? I don't know.
rom-coms and
I didn't
just
see it
generic
like that,
movies?
but I guess so. Maybe they. Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't
Derek
thinking
was
about
not
it like that. Honestly,
Derek was not too invested in this hot take.
no. But anyway, that's not like
You
that wasn't why. Let me get back to my
It's
point. That wasn't why I said it was the most unique romance. Anyway, is that there was one the hot flame
That's what I was
or whatever.
asking. Okay.
It's literally my point. What I just said is that I've never seen a romance that's like set up this way. This is the romance isn't even like really the focus for most of the story. It's like Locke himself. And most of the time, it's
Okay.
like
How about
the romance is like the entire story pretty much, or like for example,
okay.
never
How
mind.
about you say you never seen a movie. How about Breathless? How is this different than Breathless? Besides, Breathless does this much better, obviously. But how is it different? If you have not seen it, then it's okay.
Breathless. I have not seen that.
Caleb, have you seen Breathless? You have, right, Caleb?
I have seen Breathless, but it
Oh,
was
this
legitimately like
Jean-Luc Godard
well,
film.
like 6 years
Oh.
ago.
Mm-hmm. It is like I would say conceptually, in talking about it is about the guy, and the romance is like the secondary thing. Very similar. I don't think this is like that.
I mean,
and it's in general,
I don't know.
It's a European
The
thing.
themes I imagine were probably not the same. Like I don't know, he's not giving up his like family, aka the dream, for freedom and whatnot, etc., etc. Generally, I just mean in overall, due to its themes and how it's set up and shot, and what its focus is as John Nicholson, and then transferring in that to Jack Nicholson. Fuck it. To at the end we already talked about how it's like his problems going on, or what he left behind and whatnot. All that stuff, all together, most unique that I've seen.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
of the films that we've seen, right? Is what you said. You better not say of all time because.
Yeah, I never said of all time.
So
What we've
I'm just
seen.
gonna run through. I'm just gonna run through.
For this podcast.
I'm gonna run through. Okay. Tiger Etched Apart. This is definitely more unique. Raiders of the Lost Ark definitely more unique. The Godfather Part 3. That's unique.
Wait,
in
are
its
you
own
saying
way.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is more unique than this? Oh, okay,
No,
okay.
No, I said not more unique. Okay, Stromboli. That is a very similar setup for that romance.
I think you're focusing too much on me saying the romance itself. I mean, as the overall story.
I think it's the most unique story of anything.
As a romance film, this has the most unique story and the most unique elements.
Yeah, about Purple Rose of Cairo.
Definitely, yeah.
I definitely disagree with that. This is not more unique.
I think I would say the cinematography and the themes and whatnot are just more unique than overall. I'd say it more unique. Maybe not the the gimmick of having the guy come out of the screen and whatnot and all that interesting stuff is not as unique. However, I think having this dude like literally just give up everything for Viva la freedom and stuff pretty cool as well. So I think it's not too far off.
Man, a story where a man gives up everything for romance. Where?
I don't know, Derek. I'm just
not the first one, but definitely the best one that we've seen.
How about I have a great unique romance, Derek. Caleb.
Definitely the best one that we've seen so far.
Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna. Sometimes you can really trick somebody, okay? And this is gonna be that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
there's this one movie, kid, we watched. I think had a really unique romance where the guy gives up everything for the girl, to the point where he ends up dying at the end. Ah, gosh, what was it? It was the Chaplin one, Caleb. Monsieur Verdot. That ring any bells to anybody?
Did I say
As a unique romance where the guy gave up everything for the girl?
Monster Verdot is definitely not a romance.
Okay, this is the
Yeah.
most unique romance film
that we've seen. Like,
So, like-
if I looked up the title or the genre of this film and is romance, I would say this is the most unique story out of the romance films that are also if I looked them up, they'd be called a genre.
Okay, so is it the French Can-Can? Is that romance?
I think that's a musical.
Yeah, sounds
I
right.
don't know.
Same.
Do you have to entertain this hot take any longer?
Okay, Law Note's better as well, which was the same director. Which brings us. You like that? You like that? Brings
Good
us
job.
to up and down. Step up, step down. Was this a step up or a step down
Yes.
from Law Note?
Oh.
Yes, that was not a yes or no question. It's a step down, and you guys are actually
Obviously,
ridiculous.
step up.
Yeah, Lanot has Marcello Mastorioni or whatever his name is. That guy's my boy.
Is he?
Yeah.
Y'all really like Neil Real in
What
film
the-
with bad acting.
I like Lenote, Derek. Who's the
main
bad actor
dude.
Lenote? I swear to God, Derek. Oh my gosh. He's a good actor. What is wrong with his acting? It's so fucking.
Wait, who? Wait, who did you say was a bad actor?
Because the main guy in Lenote is a bad actor.
Marcello Mastroianni is a bad actor? He's my boy, Eric.
You're just saying that. You're just saying things.
I'll say step down. I really like Lanot. Sorry. They're both really good. It's really close. They're both great movies.
Okay, and I think we all agree on this next one. Solaris, step up or step down?
Step
Fun
up.
Sacrifice.
Big
Step
ass
up.
step up.
But really, it's like Solaris is like all the things you like in the Sacrifice. Solaris kind of has that too.
Yeah.
And then some. Okay. It sounds like we weren't too big on the quotes this time. Favorite quote? Anyone? Caleb, you kind of already mentioned yours.
Yeah, but I have more, so
Oh, go for it.
let's see. I gotta find it really quick. In his endless search for truth, mankind is confined to knowledge. Whew.
That is pretty dope, actually.
Wipe the sweat off your brow. That's a good one.
Wrote down any quotes. There was one where in the passenger where they were talking.
Yeah.
About that old guy. I thought that was really cool. We were just talking about like the blind guy. You guys know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
like the one that I brought up earlier, where he's like talks about the kids, and he's like, they can't escape us or whatever.
No, and he was talking about the blind.
Oh,
He's like, I met
yeah.
a blind guy. And he's like, he was talking about how like he noticed like ugliness. Anyways, I like that quote. Continue on. Derek, favorite quote.
Let me see.
Okay, favorite scene, Caleb.
When the second time he like meets the girl, he says something pretty cool. I don't remember exactly what.
Second time he meets the girl, he says
I
something
literally
pretty
watched this 2 weeks ago, Matt. So don't harp on me. I actually have a good schedule.
Fair enough. Okay, well that was just mean.
I
This is a
can
bullying
bully every
podcast.
podcast. So
Well, Derek, you had to make it personal. We only bully you about your film opinions relevant to the podcast.
yeah, like opinions aren't
You know what, Derek, I'm gonna
personal.
start- I'm gonna start bringing up
Cool.
your wife, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. She's a slut, by the way, Caleb, is the real.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, favorite scene?
Yeah.
Mine. This is probably going to be a cliche take, but the floating scene in Solaris when it bounces back and forth between the paintings.
Stole mine.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to have it, but it's really good. There's a reason why we both had it.
I guess I'll also. balance it out. I'll go to the scene the passenger. The two are talking right at the end. It's just very, and also bouncing back between the paintings. So still sticking with bouncing back between paintings, but just different context, different couples.
The shot of the girl in the car as she looks backwards is like so fucking beautiful in the passenger. Oh my god.
Well, no, like the fact that he tells her to do it too. He's like faced away from the back seat, and then she does it, and we just get like a lug shot of that.
Yeah, that was
Pretty
such
girls,
a
man. They make
beautiful
graves,
shot.
You know?
Yeah, I can't get enough of that shot.
Favorite best performance. I think we can all agree on this one. Maybe.
Yeah,
Jack
there's
Nicholson.
no way.
Yeah,
It's
why
not
not?
Jack Nicholson
Okay, favorite character.
Locke or Robertson, whichever one you want to call him.
I like the wife.
Dang, you stole mine.
She's really doing some shit, you know? It's like, is she a person? Is she not a person?
Well, that would have been mine, but at the risk of doubling up, I'll say, or to avoid doubling up, I'll say, I can't remember his name. He was like the second scientist that he talked to, where like the little like
the one that looks kind of like a gremlin, or the
Yeah.
one that kind of looks like a ferret.
the one that's
the
like kind of
ferret
tall
one.
and like skinny, and then like when they went to his room, that like guy, like the short person, just like ran out randomly and they, like grabbed him and like hauled him back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
That
I'm
guy.
trying to remember his name. I have it in my notes. Somewhere.
It's all right. His name can be
I don't
lost.
have it in my notes. Snot? Snout?
Yeah. It's Snout.
Perhaps should have
Great
been
name too.
something different. That, I
Why,
don't like
Derek?
Snout.
You
That
don't like
sounds like a
Snout?
Cartoon Network character.
I think it's a character on How to Train Your Dragon. Snout loud.
I have no doubt you're not joking.
This is like a serious statement. Is the go-to How to Train Your Dragon fan.
Hey, I read
Not
the books as
movies,
a young one.
books.
Yeah, those books are
Books
fire.
were amazing. I haven't watched the movies. Movies could also be good. I just can't. I literally tried.
Yeah, the second one. The
I
second
just
one's.
couldn't.
That one's rough. Oh,
No,
really?
I tried watching the first one. I just like.
Oh yeah,
it's not
it's
the same
completely
thing.
different.
It's like
Yeah.
a completely different. I just like it. Just felt so weird. It's like, why is he so big? Why is Hiccup so big? Anyways,
Yeah.
not Hiccup.
Yeah.
What's Toothless so big? Anyways, favorite. Oh wait, I did everything. Okay. Well, I don't even. Okay, why do I even do this anymore?
No,
Derek,
I'll
which
go
movie do you like
last.
better?
I want to see what y'all pick. Maybe y'all will change my opinion.
Caleb, which movie do you like better?
Solaris.
Okay. Derek, you want me to go next? Because I've actually,
I have no doubt.
Because I really like both. It's like, I have this mind in me. I really like both movies, right? We're gonna go with the movie that Caleb's gonna be pissed off at. Sure. Yeah. The Passenger.
I picked Passenger, so.
Good choice.
Yep, Derek. Well, maybe you should have just let me pick the order, Derek, and then we could have had a nice
I just wanted
climactic moment.
to. I just wanted to put you in a
Alright,
bad situation,
Caleb.
Matt.
Some people